Welcome to the Laureus SPORTSLab, a brand new digital forum. To celebrate the launch of this new platform, we have chosen an important topic which hits home for many of us as the focal point for the first episode. We'll be discussing various issues women and girls face around the world to determine if and how they can be addressed through sport. And it's sport which brings us here today to the beautiful and historic city of Seville, the capital of Andalusia and host city for the Laureus World Sports Awards. As you may know, the awards are the very public face of the Laureus movement. They generate awareness and funds which throughout the year and all over the world allow Laureus to address pressing social problems via sport for good, supporting more than 200 sports programs in 65 countries, a thought leader in the sport for development sector. Through this work, Laureus uses sport to address issues relating to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is why we've chosen for today's Laureus SPORTSLab to look at how we can address the challenges facing women and girls. The Laureus SPORTSLab will always aim to bring together a remarkable panel from across the Laureus network. Today, it's our honor to include Laureus World Sportswoman of the Year, Naomi Osaka, legend on and off the tennis court, Billie Jean King, an athlete and one of the most influential men in world sports, Lord Sebastian Coe, a true trailblazer, Nawal El-Mutawakel, Global Head of Education and Advocacy for the Dove Self-Esteem Project, Stacey June Shelton. In this Sports Lab, we'll hear from our panelists on their perceptions of the challenges and opponents facing women and girls. Plus, we'll take advantage of their expertise on the subject to help develop our thoughts on how we can use sport to address these issues. More importantly, on how we can use sport for good. Women and girls are statistically more likely to drop out of sports and less likely to pick sport up again later in life. Opportunities to get involved should they want to, however, are limited. There are 20 times more men's sports clubs and groups than there are for women. So, Billie Jean King, what can we do about this?
Men come up to me as much as women in that they say it changed their lives, in that their daughters and their granddaughters, that it's made a difference in how they've raised them, what they say to them, which is so important. And on the tennis aspect, the week after that match, you could not get on a court. After that match in 1973, the day after, you could not get on a tennis court in the United States, which was fantastic and really helped the growth of our sport.
What are some of your biggest concerns about the ways both girls and women are treated as they try to break into sport?
We have to treat women's sports and all genders equally, and we have to create the investment financially, the enthusiasm, the media. 40% of sports are played by women, and we only get 4% of the attention. So we need just as much attention, but girls are always told we should be happy with the crumbs. And we have to stop that. You have to think of us as having the cake, the icing, and the cherry on top, just like the men. It's very, very important. And we need to include all genders. We have to figure that out with the transgender situation. We have to make sure that everyone has a chance to play. That's the most important thing. And sports is so important to women too, because as goes the health of the mother, goes the health of the family. So there's so many reasons that girls should be in sports. Also, it teaches us how to navigate if we want to go into business, which is very important. It teaches us leadership and supportive roles as well.
Billie Jean, based on your experience and your fight against opposition, what are some advice that you would give to these younger generations of girls coming through?
To the next generation of women in sport, keep fighting, keep doing the right thing, keep trying to create opportunities. Also, learn the business of your sport. Learn the other side of your sport, not just as a player or as an athlete, but understand the people who provide the opportunities, like tournaments or competitions or whatever. Understand money. Money is really important to understand. So I really encourage girls and women to understand all aspects of what they're involved in and what they're committed to.
Billie Jean, thank you so very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And congratulations again on picking up that Laureus Lifetime Achievement Award. I would like to take a moment now to explore a bit more on a few of the points raised there by Billie Jean. Body image is such a key element of why girls pull out of sports. The changes in a young woman's body is a known factor as to why girls become more self-conscious about their looks, and as a result, less willing to put themselves on display. Now I'm delighted to welcome to the Laureus SPORTSLab the 2021 Laureus World Sportswoman of the Year, Naomi Osaka. Naomi is an athlete whose achievements and impact in her sports are outclassed only by her influence and advocacy off the court. Her silent tributes made a deafening impression around the world and shone a light on injustices during an unforgettable summer of COVID-19 and BLM. Today it's Naomi's work with Play Academy with Naomi Osaka, which we want to talk to her about. Naomi, could you tell us a little bit more about what Play Academy is all about?
My message of encouragement to girls wanting to get into sport is just to try it, and I don't know, for me I feel like it brought out a lot of good things like confidence, so yeah, just to try sports.
Naomi, based on your experiences having taken a stance on major issues, how do you feel that sport can make a difference in a much wider, bigger scale?
Regarding my activism on the court, I think it's important to use my voice because for me, I feel like I often hold back a lot and I often worry about what people think of me, but you know, if you have a platform, I think it's very important to use it.
Naomi, just to close, you won a Laureus Award earlier this year at the virtual ceremony. Could you just tell us what this recognition means to you?
Sport has changed my world by letting me travel to many different places and experiencing so many new things that I definitely wouldn't have experienced if I wasn't playing tennis.
Nawal El Moutawakel is a trailblazer. She was the first Muslim, Arab and Moroccan woman to win an Olympic gold medal. That achievement in the 400-meter hurdles was celebrated in her native country by men and women alike, which gave her a unique position, a voice and a platform to help make a difference. She has served as sports minister, a vice president of the International Olympic Committee, and has been a Laureus Academy member since 2000. Nawal, first of all, thank you so very much for being here with us. Based on your experience, what are some of the ways in which you personally have been able to encourage girls or women to get involved in sport?
Young girls, they need to practice sports and physical education because of, one more time, all the values that sports teach you self-confidence, teaches you self-esteem, makes you a stronger person today than tomorrow. And because of all this, these young girls today can become a flag bearer of their nation, of their field. They can be role models. When I see Nadia Comaneci, when I see Katarina Vitz, when I see Navratilova, I see them on the field and I see how huge they are. And you become a role model and you have a role to play in society. And you become a real ambassador of as a woman and also as a sportswoman, as a champion. And I think this is why each and every one of us needs to stay heavily involved by giving examples, by educating, by reaching, by teaching. And this is what I like to do and what I will do for the rest of my life. I love that.
Tell us about your work with Laureus and how it continues to help women and girls all around the world.
This is the message I'm trying to send out to the younger generation. Sports gives you determination, gives you self-confidence, empowers you, has so many values that if you use them, you can be successful in your life. As an academy member, I, like with my other teammates, we are trying to send a message of hope through sports. It's all about excellence. It takes you away from so many bad things, like violence, hooliganism, discrimination, drugs, doping, cheating, and it teaches you lots of good values that you can use in your daily life. And if we are here, is to hand our or give our help or give our example or give our hints to this younger generation that is most of the time lost in those problems that I just listed. I listed few of them, but there are numerous. So this is our role, this is our mission, this is what we love to do, and this is what we will do for the next coming years.
Sebastian Coe is a legend of track and field, but not only for his 2 gold medals and 2 silver medals. He also set 3 world records within 41 days, oversaw the 2012 London Olympics, and has acted as president of World Athletics for the last 6 years. On top of an already impressive CV, he is also a Laureus Academy member with further records of supporting sports for good around the world. Lord Coe, based on all of your vast experience in athletics, could you tell us from your perspective how you think the sport has changed for women?
I think in the last 20 or 30 years the sport has changed for women, but most importantly women have changed our sport. On the field of play we now have 50-50, so there's not an event that a man does that a woman doesn't compete in. And that's not always been the case. It was only in 1984 that women were allowed to run the Olympic marathon, and in 1964 for the very first time they were able to run 800 meters in an Olympic game. So the world has moved on, but the most crucial element has been the empowerment of women in positions of administration, coaching and technical officialdom. We still have a mountain to climb, but in world athletics the constitutional reforms of 2016 meant that by 2027 it will be constitutionally illegal not to have a 50-50 split, gender split, across all our governance structures. And that is really important because although we have equity on the field of play, we are still some way off allowing women to feel permission to take their place in our sport at the very highest level. This is changing, but we need to continue to drive that.
From your point of view, what more can be done and how can it tie into the future of the sport in a more general sense?
I think there's a lot more that we can do. Our gender leadership task force, the seminars where we are training the trainers and encouraging women to take their place in our sport is making a difference. But none of this works unless you have the pathways and the programs and you actively go out and recruit the best women that you possibly can find in order to take your sport to the next level. I think there's another important aspect here, and that is that our sport isn't just a sport. Viewed through the eyes of young people, as is every other organisation, they ask themselves a very fundamental question. Does the organisation that I'm looking at, does it sort of reflect the world that I live in? And if it doesn't, then they move on to something else. And if that's the case in sport, then they may move on to another sport. Worse than that, they may just decide to leave sport altogether. So it's really crucial that we continue to drive for equality in everything we do, and that goes for diversity and inclusion as well.
Lord Coe, more broadly, what can society do to help girls get involved in sports and, more importantly, to keep them active in sports?
There's a lot more that society can do to engage young girls in sport, but I think there is also a whole heap more that sport can do. And we have to be much more recognising of some of the cultural, social and occasionally political inhibitors that really prevent women from feeling that sport is for them. Sometimes it's the way that it's taught, sometimes it is the feeling that the clubs and sport structures are male orientated, male dominated, And I think that this is a role for both families. I sincerely think it's a role for governments who have got to understand that the health and well-being of their communities are really important, and that the health and well-being of young girls, which has consistently and traditionally always been a more difficult group to access, is really important for both themselves, their self-esteem, and certainly the social cohesion of every community.
Stacey June Shelton is an experienced award-winning public health professional. She's currently the Global Head of Education and Advocacy for the Dove Self-Esteem Project, her latest sustainability project at Unilever. She has led many of these types of projects for them over the last 10 years, during which Stacey has helped Unilever's brands develop, implement and test social impact programs. Stacey, let's start off by taking a step back for a second and discussing some of the biggest issues that both girls and women face from a public health perspective.
Yeah, thanks for the question, and really important topic. I think broadly we know, for girls and women, that quality of care, including having care and services and pharmaceuticals and everything tailored for them is really lacking, as well as the access. We know the data shows us that female identifying people are disproportionately impacted by body image concerns or body dissatisfaction. So if you look at any population, you will find that the female identifying group of that population would have higher prevalence rates of body dissatisfaction. Globally, we know that there are a lot of pressures on girls and women for their self-worth, for their value, for their success is dependent on appearance, and they feel all those pressures. In regards to physical activity, we feel like there's, again, lots of access issues, access to facilities, coaches who are trained to support young females, as well, just having the type of activities they like to do offered. Maybe girls don't always like the competitive sports nature. Some do, some don't. There'll be a variety. So ensuring that there's physical activity and movement opportunities for all young girls and women is really important.
More specifically, how have you transferred your experience and understanding to your work now with Unilever and Dove?
Yeah, so I completed my bachelor's in exercise and health sciences and did some coaching and physical activity training myself. I went on to do my master's in public health because I realized this is really an area I can take physical activity more broadly. I can look at the impacts of the physical environment, the social environment on are those barriers or facilitators, enablers for physical activity. So yeah, it was an incredible journey to be able to apply my passion for physical activity and movement and do that within my career and in public health. On Dove, for the past 5.5 years, I've been able to, again, use my expertise in taking programs to scale, and my focus area of adolescents in schools to apply that to the Dove Self-Esteem Project, which is really a mental health issue. Body image is around how we think and feel about our bodies and what they look like and what they can do. And yeah, it's been incredible. I think the private sector and the partners we have, like Laureus, we're able to take programs to scale. We're able to use the marketing expertise from the private sector and the reach that the brands have to get out to more and more people. So it's been an incredible journey to really bring in the science and the creativity to create and implement very impactful programs.
After speaking with so many wonderful experts from today's Laureus SPORTSLab panel, I feel that we've really begun to scratch the surface of a whole range of issues. And perhaps that's the takeaway from today. With a single subject like women and girls, we're able to cover so much ground regarding wide-ranging issues that due to the various opinions, experiences, and expertise, a simple summary is hard to see. But let's try to, because despite the differences put forward by our panelists, there's actually quite a bit of common ground from what we've heard. For one thing, women's sport is harder to get into, yet easier to be abandoned than it is for men. And it's a direct consequence of the wide spectrum of burdens that girls or women face, such as body image, peer pressure, lack of opportunities, and the list goes on. Sadly, despite the work being done by sporting bodies, businesses, and grassroots sports, the influence acting against women and girls are currently more powerful than those which keep them involved. And while there are many positive and outstanding female role models in sport, it's often hard to see past the sports marketing and popular culture, which are dominated by their male counterparts. That is why organizations such as Laureus strive to fill in the gaps and to provide access to solutions which currently plague the sports world. To go beyond awarding the sport elites for their merits, but to also collaborate with these elite members of the sports world to lend a helping hand in areas most needed. In the case of today, a better future for women and girls in sport. That's all the time that we have for today. A big thank you to all of you for being here with us, and of course to the City of Seville for being the host city for this Laureus SPORTSLab Forum. We'll see you soon. Adios.